There are financial speculators in this country today who are investing in nuclear lawsuits against trucking companies. And they're doing this because they hope to catch a part of a huge multi-million-dollar payout. It's wrong. It's part of a growing problem, and we're going to talk about that today on this episode of Off Duty Driver. Hi everyone, I'm Jack Roberts, and I am your host for Off Duty Driver. That's your video channel for online news, information, tips, resources, even a little bit of fun every now and then. So as I was saying, we've got speculators now. We've got a story about this on truckinginfo.com that I'll put in the link in the comments below. These individuals are investing in lawsuits, and it's a secret. These are often investment groups. They could be financial lending groups, even individuals, and they do this in secret through shell companies. And what they're doing is they're investing in a lawsuit. They're funding lawsuits that they think could deliver a nuclear verdict on behalf of the plaintiff, and they would get a cut of that nuclear verdict. And again, we're talking about lawsuits that are generating tens of millions of dollars in settlements. 3 Republican congressmen, Darrell Issa of California, you got Scott Fitzgerald out of Wisconsin, and Mike Collins of Georgia, have just introduced legislation in the House of Representatives that would require transparency in this matter. In other words, lawyers would be required to tell judges and juries about any secret investors that are funding their lawsuits and hoping to profit off of the outcome. This is a good development. It's nice to see Congress doing something that actually helps the trucking industry for a change, but all this bill does is require transparency. It ought to be illegal. But before I even get into that part of it, what kind of ghoul thinks that this is acceptable? How morally bankrupt of a person do you have to be to think that profiteering off of other people's pain, suffering, misfortune, misery, and death is okay like this? It's immoral. It's just plain wrong. And obviously, it ought to be illegal. The justice system is based on fair and impartial trials by jury, where everybody gets to present their view and their version of events, and a verdict is rendered based on the facts. And that's a part of the problem, because a lot of people assume that's what's happening in a lot of these nuclear verdict cases, and it's not. And Jennifer Aker is a defense attorney she was our keynote speaker at the Heavy Duty Trucking Exchange Fleet Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona last year. And she specializes in defending trucking fleets from nuclear verdicts, from nuclear lawsuits, I guess you would call them. And so she was telling us, and I'll put the link to this story also in the comments below so you can read what I wrote about it. But she says the problem is far, far worse than most people realize, because a lot of the verdicts that get rendered in these cases have nothing to do with the actual facts in the case of an accident. You've got fleets that were technically and legally blameless in the accident. They did everything right, and they're still getting nuclear verdicts rendered against them. And the reason the plaintiff's attorneys are able to do this is because they piss the juries off at the trucking fleet or the truck driver or the owner-operator. And pissed off is her term, not mine. And what these lawyers do is they go through your personal and your company records with a fine-tooth comb, and they're looking for anything they can find to paint your company as greedy, uncaring, malicious, and dangerous. And anything they can find, they'll jump on it and they will hammer you with it in front of a jury. They'll call fleet managers and drivers murderers on the stand. And of course, as a lawyer, Aker is going to immediately object to this language, have it thrown out. But the jury still hears it, and they still plant that thought in their minds. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about as to how nuclear verdicts get delivered. So she had one fleet she was defending, and they had a driver who hit 1 million accident-free miles, which is a huge accomplishment, and kudos to whoever this driver is, wherever he is out there, he or she. And the fleet wanted to do some things to reward them for achieving this incredible milestone. And one of the things they decided to do was that they had a driver safety meeting coming up in the next few weeks. And they said, you know what, let's let this guy skip the meeting. He obviously knows more about, driver safety than the guy's presenting the information. He's got 1 million free accident miles. So we're going to give him a day off paid. He doesn't have to go to to the meeting. Well, you guys know what's coming, right? I mean, you can see this coming from a mile away. Sure enough, a few weeks later on, the guy's involved in an accident. It's not his fault. However, in the deposition phase of preparing for the lawsuit, the plaintiff lawyers find out that they let this guy skip the safety meeting. And man, they went to town with it. They hammered him with it in the court. They don't care about safety. They don't even require their drivers to attend safety meetings. Again, the guy had 1 million accident-free miles under his belt. That should have been a huge part of saying, hey, obviously we care about safety and so forth, but yeah, they used that against him in the case, and they paid a price for it. Another fleet that Acre defended, this guy was really worried about, this fleet was really worried about, what happens in the aftermath of an accident and nuclear verdicts. People get out of their vehicles, they're in shock, no one's really sure what's happened. People are saying all kinds of stuff, and you're saying things that could be used to incriminate you in a court of law. So this fleet decided what we're going to do is we're going to require our drivers to stay in the truck if it's safe. And the first thing you do in an accident is you call back to fleet headquarters, you report the accident, we'll start working the problem. Don't get out, don't talk to anybody, don't say anything, don't do anything, just stay put. Well, sure enough, there was an accident and the other people were hurt. The driver followed the company policy. He stayed in the cab of the truck, called back to the fleet, so on and so forth. Well, in court, the plaintiff attorneys were saying, well, this company doesn't care about the pain and suffering they cause on the road. They won't even let their drivers get out of the truck and render first aid, and they don't even let them ask if anyone's okay, and so on and so forth. And it created this negative opinion, this version of this trucking company that hurt them in court. And one HDTX attendee, actually a friend of mine, that was his company policy. He personally had implemented it. He's a small fleet owner. And as soon as Acre was done talking, man, he pulled his phone out, walked outside, called back to the home office, and immediately changed the policy. He said, we got to fix this because it looks bad, and we're just going to have a new policy going forward. So obviously nuclear verdicts are a problem. They're only getting worse. It's an issue that no one in this industry is safe. Fleet owner, small fleet owner, large fleet owner, owner-operator, drivers, dispatchers, even down to technicians. Any of you could have your lives blown apart by a nuclear verdict, by the lawyers coming after you because something happened. And, I get it. Lawsuits are a legitimate way of keeping people accountable in our society. It's a way of ensuring that bad actors don't get away with bad actions. It keeps people from wantonly being unsafe and engaging in behavior that is unsafe. But that said, we're at the point where the verdicts far, far outweigh some of the accidents we're talking about here. And we're seeing cases where the fleet is, again, technically, if you just look at the facts on the ground, vehicle A pulls in front of vehicle B, the fleet's not at fault. They're still paying out millions and millions of dollars in damages. And, again, accident victims, when they're not at fault, they certainly have a right to be taken care of when an accident occurs, compensated for pain, suffering. There's no question any of that. So that's not what's happening right now. People are profiting off of these cases, and again, speculators are even buying in, trying to get a huge chunk of the payout. It's a problem, and if this industry doesn't step up and start to do something about it pretty soon and get vocal about it, it could destroy this industry, it could destroy our supply chain, hell, it could wreck our economy. So again, that's what I want to leave you with today, just something to think about. Be careful out there. And that's it for this episode of Off Duty Driver. We're going to put it on the books. I'm Jack Roberts. I'm executive editor at Heavy Duty Trucking. And until next time, hold them in the road.